So I recently made my CNC a new home with this, well, it's actually two cheap workbenches bolted together back to back. But you can see the drawers are kind of a mess. The whole thing used to live on this workbench right there. And here you can see the Harbor Freight workbenches. I bought two of them and bolted them together to make a 4x4 work area. But these drawers are just a mess right now, so I'm going to use my CNC to clean up my CNC station. How about that? So this is all the stuff that had slowly collected over the last several months while my machine was living on my assembly table. And so I figured this is all stuff that I want handy. These are things that had accumulated and piled up next to the machine because I used them often enough that it wasn't worth putting them away. And now that I have some drawers, it's time to organize my life. So I pulled everything out and set them on the bottom of the drawers. These are thin, like 1/8" MDF drawer bottoms that came with the setup. So I still had the SVG file for this little caddy I had made, and I liked the layout of it, so I wanted to incorporate those same designs into the new one that would take up the whole drawer. So I started just laying things out and seeing where I think they would fit good. You'll see later on that I decided to change out these Allen wrenches to a small set that came out of a kit. They didn't need this much space taken up by Allen wrenches. But this is going to be a very personal process, so I can't really teach you how to do this. Best thing to do would be to fast forward through this, and you can just sort of see how I figured this out for myself. So here I started drawing around all my parts, just drawing right on the bottom of the drawer. It's going to be replaced by the 3/4 inch MDF I'm going to cut this all out of, so it can just be drawn on, so I have a template to start designing my cut list from, my tool paths. So let's skip on past all this too. Once I knew where I wanted everything, I could start making some measurements from the lines. Since the pencil is writing slightly wider than the tools, they should all fit because I wasn't writing underneath the tools, which would be dumb. Yeah, don't do that. Write on the outside of the tools, so when you make your measurements, your tool paths will leave room for, you get it. All right, so yep, let's skip past this too. This is just me getting measurements and figuring out what size we want to make these holes. So this is the part where you get to see my face, and brought in the original drawings for the little caddy I made when the CNC was sitting on top of my assembly table. This was just to keep things from rolling off the table, but I liked the placement and the organization, so I brought it in to I use Carveco here. It's really good for all sorts of things, but there are probably many other software like Easel or some of the other ones I forget. I don't use them, but this is a pretty simple project, pretty simple design. simple, cheap software will do the trick, whatever you use for your CNC. Essentially, I just set up a material that is 24 by 24. That's the size of the 3/4 MDF that I will be using to cut this out of. The bottom of the drawer itself was roughly 19 by 17 inches. And from here, I just spent about an hour getting everything lined out. You'll notice that one of the first things I do is notch out for the drawers. There is some hardware that sticks into the drawer bottom, and this is going to be different on each of your drawers, so there's no real reason to use my numbers, so there's no real reason for me to give them to you. But you need to be aware that sometimes these metal drawers, if you're using the same Harbor Freight workbenches, they have little bolts and screws that stick into the drawer, and I wanted this to have a nice snug fit, so I made little slots so when I drop this down in, it would not hang up on the bolts or the screws for the slides or the handle of the drawer. Once again, this is just a lot of me making my custom tray so that it'll fit my particular drawers. And so let's make this. Since I am using 3/4 MDF, I made all my slots an even 1/2 inch deep to leave a 1/4 inch underneath. Since this is replacing the bottom of the drawer, I did not want it to be too thin. I don't want to drop a tool in there and have it go through the thin MDF and onto the shelf below the drawer. You could do different depths for different things, like the calipers being 1/2 inch deep is not necessary. And so you could customize it even more. I found that I personally am not super concerned with reaching into the little pockets. I do put little circles in key areas so that I can get my finger in next to the tool and pull them out. You'll be able to see that here in a minute. But other than that, it's pretty simple. 3/4 inch MDF and cut to fit with pockets to fit all my tools. If you need more instructions on how to do any of this, there's lots of them out there, or leave me a message. If this is something you're interested in, I would be more than happy to set up a live stream or do a more in-depth tutorial. I actually have this whole setup so that I could do like a Twitch tutorial live stream. If anyone's interested in that, let me know. I'd be more than happy to schedule that for everybody. But for the most part, this is just me making little slots that fit the different things. That's for a flashlight. It is one thing that I have noticed. I do use a flashlight a lot on my CNC because all my overhead lighting up underneath the rails and stuff, when you're trying to tighten backlash nuts and things, they tend to be in a deep shadow. So let's see, what else do I have on here? I have obviously my calipers. I have slots for the wrenches to change bits. This is for the Allen wrench sets. I have both a metric and a standard. My particular CNC was designed in Canada, so everything's metric, which I don't mind. But some of the stuff I've added on has been in the stupid units, in our American SAE units. So I have both sets of tools there. That's for a multi-screwdriver underneath there, and then I'm going to put my slot for what's the word? A razor knife, a box cutter next to it, so that I can trim things. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. If, like I said, if anyone wants more in depth on any of this stuff and things I've learned and why I chose these particular parts, let me know. I'd be happy to share. Let's move on. So now we get to the fun part where we get to start making cuts. So you can see I have an interesting spoil board. This was a modification of a design I found online. If any of you are using CNC long mills, I would love to share this design with you. Basically, there are 5 T-tracks. That's the black lines underneath. The big holes are 3/4 inch dog holes, so I can use a 3/4 inch dowel for alignment. And then the small holes in between the dog holes are each inset with a 1/4-20 threaded insert. That way I can screw down clamps anywhere on the table. I tend to use the T-tracks a lot, as you can see here with the well, these are just my homemade clamps. I've never used anything but my homemade clamps, made from 3/4 inch cabinet plywood. I think it's Baltic birch. They are super strong, but if my blade or if my bit gets into them, it just cuts through them, and I make more. And so, yeah, this. If you're interested in this spoil board, let me know. I would love to share all its functionality, because this is pretty rudimentary cut I'm doing here, so it's nothing really super special, but it makes for some really cool repeatable cuts, because the whole thing is aligned to the gantry itself. So I can stick a couple little pins in those dog holes and know my board is perfectly square with my X-axis gantry. So anyway, well, this is just setting up the machine, which is no fun. Let's get on to the cutting. That's always a fun part. Let's make some chips. Well, I say chips, but anyone who has cut MDF before knows it just turns into a really, really nasty dust. So make sure you're wearing respirators if you're cutting MDF. There are some brands out there, I've never used them, but I know they exist, that don't use harmful chemicals in the gluing process. I don't know how well they stack up as far as strength or durability, but if you're interested in something like that, you can find it. But why is this even important? You know, I found that I tend to get into the shop more when it's organized, when my tools have homes. That's why I have a French cleat wall, that I can make homes really easy for tools, and I can move them as necessary or pull the carriage clear off the wall and bring it over to my workbench. You know, I'm working in a little 2-stall garage, so it's really cramped. Everything needs to have its own place. It's like living in a camper or a submarine. You don't just leave stuff strewn everywhere, or else you can't move pretty soon. But there's something more intrinsic that I found to having all my tools in their own place. It was years ago that I spent my first personal money on tools, and it was for just a mechanic set, one of those Stanley plastic case mechanic sets that has a bunch of sockets and a few wrenches, and you know, but it was a big one, had, you know, a couple hundred pieces in it, and to this day, almost 25, 30 years later, oh my goodness, yeah, pretty close to 30 years later, I still have every single one of those sockets. Every piece that came in that kit's still there, and I still use pretty regularly. And I noticed that it was because everything had a home in that case. So I could open the case real easy and see if something was missing and take the time to go find it. So I have always loved the idea of having the drawers in my shop set up in this way, where everything has its own home, because then I know if something's not put away or left out, or I took it out to put it in a toolbox to take onto a location. And so getting the CNC machine has been super nice for my wanting to keep things where they're at. If you don't operate this way, I suggest try it. Just pick some things for one style of thing you do. Like if you have glue guns. If you do glue gun craft stuff, take the time to make yourself a case to store everything proper, and see how much better you take care of and keep those tools nice. It's just if something has a place to be, it's easy to put it in it. If it doesn't have a place to be, it's easy just to throw it anywhere. So, the Japanese, Chinese have this term called feng shui about everything in its place and setting up your home in a certain way. And I don't believe in all the spiritual part of that, but I do believe there's something psychological to the fact that if things are neat and tidy, that we think better, we operate better, and this is my cheap attempt to keep my workspace neat and tidy. I mean, this whole board only cost it's half of a $10 piece of wood. So, and honestly, it's taking me longer to film this video than it was to actually do this project for you. So, anyway, if you have questions or ideas or want to know what might work, so you don't, have to redo things, definitely hit me up. Let me know. This is, I can't say I'm passionate about organization, but it is something that helps my brain. Helps my brain a lot. So this may be something that helps others' brains. I think in the chaos of day-to-day life and everything, that if we can keep little things where they belong, that helps. I have not operated with this philosophy my whole life. I have spent a lot of time just stacking things wherever they can be. I used to operate under the principle that a messy desk is an organized mind. But there's something just so cool about watching all these tools go back into their home and test fitting everything. I did have to make some minor adjustments before I did this next part and cut out the outside. So I can see here I'm punching little holes for all the screws that hold the drawer together. And here we go, final cut, cleaning up. And it's just had such a sense of cleanliness and togetherness when you start seeing this being put in here like this. And with that,